All right. Welcome into the Illini Ottawa podcast. My name is Saeed Bravo. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the pod. As always, I really appreciate it. And at this point, it is April 9th, and the Illinois men's basketball season has concluded. I know it's been a while since, the season did end. It was last Saturday. It ended in Indianapolis. And today I have with me Elliot Casey, who was with me in Indianapolis. We both covering this Illini team and their Final Four run, at least the latter half of it in Indianapolis. Well, how are you doing, Elliot?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's given me some almost a week now to
Yeah,
process it and unpack kind of what happened. It felt just felt like a whirlwind of things was going
100%.
on when we were there. Both before the game, after the
Yeah,
game, during the game. But nonetheless, I mean, so glad that we were able to cover such
100%.
an amazing event with our team, covering our team. We've been covering all season, and they really were able to make the trip to the Final Four. Just unbelievable, unbelievable.
I am so grateful that they got to that point, right? Like we'll get into them losing against UConn and all that, but I am so grateful that they got to that point because, man, well, I'll tell you, I really wish we could have gone to Greenville. I wish we could have gone to Houston, but alas, the fact that they made it to Indianapolis, a very small 2 hour drive away. And that was awesome to be at that stage in a historic place. But before we really dive into all of that, Elliot, I know it was your first season really on a beat, and we were talking. We've talked a lot more since those couple road trips that we had. Those rides in the car that you and me both had, along with Cooper O'Kelly, who came with us on that Friday morning for media availability. What was it like for you, man? Because I know you really haven't been in that, like, to cover this team and to cover a Final Four in your first season covering men's basketball as a student reporter, and even really being on a beat. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to the start. I mean, it was a contrast in the way I felt after going to my first media availability in Rosemont for Big Ten Media Days on October 9th, I believe it was. Yeah, I mean, I remember being super scared to talk to Hummerkaus and Boswell and Underwood for the first time. And I walked into this huge hall, and there's just 18 podiums, 18 different Big Ten teams, all with their coaches and their players ready to talk, and national media outlets left and right. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I managed to get out of that situation proud and confident in the questions that I ended up asking in the article that I ended up writing. But from then to now, I mean, it's crazy how far both me and you have come. But me specifically, with this being my first full season as a beat reporter, and it's just crazy that I got to do it for one of the most historic Illinois basketball teams ever, frankly. And yeah, I mean, I'd say the closest thing to the Final Four for me all season was probably the Big Ten tournament at the United Center.
Yeah.
And obviously, we didn't get to spend as much time there, and there wasn't as much access. But even that, every game, every new game I covered, every new stadium I went to, Mackey Arena, United Center, whatever it may be, I mean, just took away something new each time. And in return, now I'm confident in these types of situations, and I felt calm and composed in the locker room with our team.
That is awesome. I'm so happy to hear that, especially just as someone who I know you and me are really close in age, but relative to how long you've been doing this and how long I've been doing this, I know it's not that much, but those reps really do matter. Not to get too much inside baseball, but those reps that you've gotten this first season are going to serve you really well, and I hope to really continue seeing you grow next season. Obviously, I won't be here, but neither here nor there. But man, Final Four. It was something that we really, I think, every Illini fan, every person, every member of the community really relished in that week in between Illinois winning that Elite Eight game and then coming into that weekend in Indy with where so many fans and the orange and blue really showed up, especially in that open practices. Really, everybody has kind of mentioned at this point. What did you make of that loss against UConn? Because obviously, I think people came into it, and it's including me, thinking that Illinois had a really, really good shot at winning that game. But the way that game really unfolded, it felt like Illinois just did not. I don't know if it maybe did not do enough differently to win that game. I know a lot of things went into like the rim was somewhat of a storyline after the North Rim was somewhat of a storyline afterwards that maybe someone needs to do a little bit more digging on specifically. But I guess what did you make of that loss?
Yeah. So obviously coming into it, I think Illini fans did have this sense of confidence just because of how many fans were forming this revolution for the orange and blue. And everybody showed up to the departure at the practice facility where they were on the send off to Indy. Underwood gave the speech. A couple players gave speeches. All the players and Underwood just empowering the fans. And what that kind of did is, I think both the players and the fans went into the game with a sense of confidence, like I was saying. But at the end of the day, UConn was historically good in the Final Four before Saturday night, and Illinois was historically bad, and those trends continued. Like you said, the speculation about the left rim. I mean, either way, Illinois couldn't make anything. 6 threes out of 26 on the night after only making 3 in the Elite Eight game against Iowa. Um, you can't expect to win these types of games when you're just simply not knocking down your shots. But that being said, they did such a good job of keeping themselves in the game, even though they weren't making shots. The offense, like they
Yeah.
always do, did a pretty good job getting to the rim and getting those second chance offensive rebounds. But again, they only had 3 assists on the night, and I think it comes down to they just needed to share the ball a little bit more. It seemed like it was a little too much of attacking one-on-one mismatches. I know that's something specifically that this Tyler Underwood-led offense likes to do. If you have Tommy in the post on a guard, obviously he's just going to go get himself a bucket. But when those started to not go down, I mean, I felt something needed to be changed. And I think sharing the ball would have been some sort of a valve there. But yeah, I mean, with 3 minutes left to play, Hummerkaus nailed a triple to put it in reach of a comeback, and Wagler brought it down even to a 4-point lead. I think it was UConn had.
Yeah.
But then Braylon Mullins, obviously coming off that shot against Duke, I think he finished with 15 points on the night and 4 triples. He knocked down most important one of the night when it mattered for UConn and kind of put the nail in the coffin to send the Illini home. But yeah, I mean, you can tell that it meant so much to the players, especially Ben and Kylan and the international guys that are playing on a stage that they had never played on in their lives. Stojakovic himself also had never played in a March Madness. And obviously, you know how much it means to Underwood working for this since he joined in 2017, and obviously coming from his JUCO coaching background and making it this far with Illinois. I mean, you can just tell how much he and the players love the fans and how much they appreciated them coming out and filling the entire west side of the stands with orange on Friday and filling majority of the stadium on Saturday.
Yeah, no question about it. You did touch on it a little bit. The fact that there were some balls that you felt like, I don't know if you saw these videos after the game on like whether it was Instagram or TikTok, but the ball just rolling in and out of the basket was the number of those types of balls that didn't go in was pretty staggering. I don't have the specific number, but it felt like so much more. And after the game, we did get a sense of what it felt like post game, and it really the resounding message felt like, besides obviously the sorrowness of the abruptness of the end, as Underwood likes to put it, but the fact that it just wasn't their day. As you said, it felt like Illinois was doing a good job to stay in reach for most of that game. I mean, with like around 10 to 12 minutes left in that second half, there was a point where UConn was up by a pretty big margin, and it felt like if this continued, then Illinois' chances at winning this game were close to zero. But they kept staying at bay with UConn, and UConn really wasn't closing out that game as well. UConn let Illinois hang for quite a while, and like you said, it wasn't until that last shot that Braden Mullins had. It was a 3-point shot, and I think a lot of people forget too that right after that, Keaton Wagler returned the favor like immediately, and you felt like maybe that was the last sip of hope that you had if you're as an Illini fan. But ultimately, it wasn't enough because Illinois, like you said, just did not do enough to miss 23-point shots is a staggering amount, and to only shoot, I believe they shot 36% from the field. That's just not going to do it in a game of this stage, in a game of this caliber against an opponent like UConn. And you did get the sense of what kind of mentality this UConn team had going into this game. And I was sharing that a little bit of that at the media workroom with you, Elliot. But I had a chance on Friday before the game. This was Friday morning after Illinois media availability. I checked out the UConn locker room, and boy, will I tell you, that locker room was just, it really felt like business as usual. While Illinois had, and this is not to say that Illinois had no right to, these Illinois players should be happy. They should be savoring all these moments that they will have for the rest of their lives. But you just saw a stark difference between what the Illinois locker room was versus what the UConn locker room was. On one hand, Illinois was soaking in all the media attention and all, as they should. On the other hand, you just had a UConn, which is just a behemoth of a program in general. Obviously, not as many guys have been at that stage when it comes to that UConn team, but you had one or two guys who had been there before. And most importantly, a Danny Hurley who is accustomed to winning, who wanted to is bullish on making that team a championship team year in and year out. Obviously, they came short of that, but man, you saw that mentality play out, and how that it was just really staggering to see what that was like before the game actually unfolded. To see every player just kind of be there, but not really miserable, but just kind of they were just kind of there, like business as usual. And I can tell you, based on what I was told by a couple of my other colleagues, uh, that UConn locker room after that win over Illinois, excuse me, on Saturday, was equally as stationary, as calm as can be, as let's get to the next thing. And it's just these two programs are at two different stages. One where UConn has been in this spot as a program for a long, long time and is accustomed to getting to this stage. Illinois hasn't done this in 21 years. And it felt like maybe you felt that on Saturday and you felt that over the course of the week. But with that being said, I do think Underwood and the Illinois program had a right to flex his muscles, had a right to smile as much as they did, because this is an accomplishment that not that many teams have year in and year out. And Illinois getting to the stage, breaking through like they did this past season, incredibly important, regardless of what happened on Saturday.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think you touched on a good bit of it, but like they had every right to soak all of that in. I mean, Underwood having climbed the ladder and all these play like I mean, Kylan hadn't ever been to the Final Four. Hummerkaus, a guy who played D2 basketball and I don't know where he played, but from Indiana, kid from Indiana, D2 basketball.
None of them had ever been at that stage.
All the internationals as well, going straight from Euro basketball to Final Four and the pinnacle of college basketball. I mean, they had every right to soak in, and especially Underwood, because I think it gave him a sense of, wow, like this team was so special. I'm glad that we have something to show for it, you know?
Yeah, no question about that. And you talk about, I mean, Underwood, 39 years to have gone coaching without having reached that stage as a head coach, and really all that often. It's it's crazy to think about how much work and how much it meant to all these guys. Because I get a little bit off track here, but when you walk into that locker room, you felt the impact of it, right? You felt all these staffers and all these managers and all these players and all these, and Underwood himself, and they walk out red eyes, and you felt the impact of what this meant to them, as a family, as a coaching staff, as a team. And it was just really awesome to have seen that firsthand.
Yeah, I think I know we talked a little bit about this earlier, but pregame, the Illinois locker room, it was lively. It was lively, but at the same
Yeah,
time focused, but more excited and also
yeah.
confident at the same time. I mean, the Mario Kart in the locker room, that's a good
Yeah,
way to show that this team is literally just a bunch of friends who just want to work
yeah,
together and help each other win. But like you said, UConn, business, serious, ready, locked in. And Hurley does that to those guys. Hurley definitely does that to those guys. I mean, you can tell on the sideline how much he cares about winning the game, no matter what, no matter the stakes. And yeah, after the game in the Illinois locker room, I think it was really sad to see Underwood break down like that, because obviously he doesn't get that emotional normally.
no,
But I think it was just a testament to how grateful he is to have
yeah,
experienced this year with these people, but also he doesn't want it to end. Like you said, he hates the abruptness of an end. And there was a quote. He said, "Please come back. Let's go do this again." And I think,
yeah.
um, I don't know. I think it would be hard for these players to let down their old man like that. I mean,
Yeah,
this is really like a family.
yeah, and we'll get into that as this podcast kind of continues. But you you would imagine that it'd be really difficult for a lot of these players to have experienced that and to say. I mean, you would imagine it'd be hard for them to say, "Oh wow, wow, yeah, we got to a Final Four. I'm just gonna go take a bag somewhere else." It's probably hard to come to terms with that. But before we really dive into that, I'm really glad that the national people and the national media and then just audiences around NCAA were able to see Underwood that we get to see a lot of the times, which is mostly a tempered Brad Underwood. And I was talking to a couple of my former colleagues at CNN, and they were telling me that it felt like their kind of picture of what Underwood is this fiery, fire cracking, and an angry head coach all the time, but he's really good, which it is true. He's really good head coach, but like we don't really see him being all that fiery all the time. I mean, he does get that way, but not all the time. And post game, he rarely ever is that way, and he's rarely ever like a Danny Hurley or people like that. But I for one was really really happy that people in the national media had a chance to see him vulnerable and had a chance to see him smile all the time. Man, this guy was from the moment we got to Indianapolis, it felt like he was smiling the whole time up until game time.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely, you said it pretty well. I mean, he he was. I don't think he could have been any happier when on that send off, given that speech. I mean, you could see the smile just lighting up his soul. Um, but like what you said about the national media, I do think that was a way for national fans of college basketball to really see the true Underwood, who he is. And he told the media, he told them, he said, "I don't want to be known for wins and losses. I want to be
Yeah.
known for impacting people's lives." And that's exactly what he does. He brings a group of guys together in this program and makes them genuinely care for and love one another. And I mean, if you're a recruit, it's got to be great to see that guy as your coach, because you want a leader of men like that as your coach. And not even just Underwood, but the national media that was highlighting the team as a whole. It was so good to see. I mean, I think it's well deserved. I mean, this team really just does have special players. Like you could see everybody on Instagram and TikTok just being obsessed with Merkovich and his
Yeah.
silly moments and the cowboy hat. And I think it's just a testament to how special this team was. And overall, I think the attention on the program is not only going to positively benefit the program as a whole in the future with more recruits coming in and NIL and whatnot, but also Illinois as a school itself. I think we'll probably see an increase in applicants next year
Yeah.
and maybe the
Yeah.
year after that if we're even better next year. You
Yeah.
know.
What one of the sells for Josh Whitman as AD back in the day was actually, hey, what I can bring as an AD is that I can make sports better, and sports better equals better brand, which equals better name recognition for the university, which is something that is, I guess, pretty logical. But no question about that, so many things have changed since this. Football team, basketball team have gotten so much better. But to kind of focus in on one guy, what do you make of? And obviously, we talked to him. He was emotional, and we saw a pretty raw version of him. And he can get pretty raw in these post game scenarios, and be himself, and it was really good to see that. But Kylan Boswell, as a player who came here after playing a couple years in Arizona, and became kind of one of the leaders and a symbol for Illinois men's basketball. What do you make of what his legacy will be? What do you think his legacy even is?
Yeah. You know, after spending time at Arizona, I think it was really such a good choice, and it worked out so well for him to come back home and feel that love again. I think he just needed a fresh start. He needed a reset, and he impacted his team immediately. And I think him and Underwood had a personal connection. I think Underwood is part of the reason that Boswell was as impactful on Illinois as he was. And Boswell was always a leading voice, whether in the locker room or from the sideline when he was injured, or on the court. Obviously, this season offering that veteran leadership to Wagler, Keaton sometimes I think Keaton and both Brad attribute how quick Keaton was able to rise to the scene to the amount of pressure that Boswell would put on him in defense and practice. And Boswell is just one of those types of guys who's just going to push his teammates to be better every day. This year it was really good to see him finally get the All Big Ten defensive first team. I think he might have deserved it even more last year specifically, but to get it in his senior year in his hometown, I think that probably just meant so much to him to have that show what his career at Illinois meant. And obviously, Keaton coming in changed his season, but the way he accepted that role and chugged along shows who he is as a player and a person. And his jersey being hung up on alma mater speaks for itself. And specifically speaking to Kylan pregame and postgame, I talked to him pregame. I asked him how much the personality test matters when it comes to the success of this team, and he said it matters a lot because this program is never going to have anybody with an ego. And he said you wouldn't survive at Illinois if that's your personality. And then post game, he opened up about some of the abuse that he received at Arizona, and I think that kind of just shows how grateful he was to join a group of people that cared for each other and lifted each other up. And he was able to find success in an environment like that.
Yeah, I do think first it's worth acknowledging that that Boswell did not have the best NCAA tournament, right? 7.8 points per game, uh, with high level minutes. It's true that he maybe did not have the most impact out of all the guys that were on the floor, but where he did have the most impact, I thought, was as that leading voice, and as you mentioned, that guy who can be kind of that yeah, like that clubhouse voice, that locker room voice to really lead this team. And I'll get into this little bit. I do think he represents the community really, really well, I thought. But yeah, with that still being said, I do think Kylan Boswell will be remembered as that hometown hero and one of the most beloved guys because he is from here. And I think people kind of tend to overlook that. And him being here. Right? I don't think we could have taken that for granted because he uh like you mentioned, the personality test of it all. Boswell became pretty selfless at that point. I mean, I think you could have gotten, if you were maybe a different kind of player, then maybe Kylan Boswell wouldn't have liked the fact that Keaton Wagler came out of nowhere, that David Mirkovic was going to be as good as he was. And I think the idea coming into this season was that Andrej Stojakovic and Kylan Boswell were going to lead this offense to great heights. Instead, it became the recruiting jobs and Keaton Wagler and David Mirkovic being the guys to really, really step up. And maybe that was by design. I think some of it was by happenstance, but I think that it's awesome that he got the chance to lead this team, to be one of the leading voices on a team that Illinois basketball team that hadn't done something that they hadn't done in 21 seasons. To me, that's just a really cool story. You'll feel really good about that because, especially given the fact that what you said, right? The maybe the I don't know if it was abuse, right, from Arizona, but the fans definitely chirped at him after that UConn loss because obviously all the fans are at Lucas Oil Stadium, all from all four teams, and he heard stuff, and it certainly sounded like he wasn't happy to hear that kind of stuff. And after an emotional loss like that, you're obviously going to be vulnerable emotionally and maybe more apt to respond to those kind of things. But I think this is one of the benefits of the transfer portal, where it's a guy who didn't have as much impact as he maybe wanted to at Arizona, got the chance to come back to his hometown, to be a part of a historic run, and to now get a chance to go into the NBA, see what that can bring for his life, and see if he can make some more generational money for his family. And I think to me that's what it's all about, right? To see that unfold, and that's why we like to talk to these players. And he was always pretty real, and I always appreciate that, the fact that he's always pretty real. And so um to me, just to elaborate a little bit more on the person that he is, like, this is a man of the people, that this is home for him, and he enjoys it. I mean, I was playing soccer at the Arc, and this man just pulled up just out of nowhere, casually, and he's talking to everybody at the Arc, and he's just being a normal dude. And I feel like that's a little rare to see from a guy who is this star who gets all this money, all this attention, but ultimately he's just out there playing intramural football, and that's what it's all about. To see a kid go from a hometown to try to pursue his basketball dreams, comes back, takes them to the next level, becomes part of the basketball dream, and has all these dreams come to fruition. And now seeing if he can make that jump to the NBA and how that looks like. So that's really just the biggest thing to me, is this, to see that. But I mentioned it a little bit. Keaton Wagler, as a dude who is going, most likely going to the NBA, right? I mean, I feel pretty confident in saying that. What I mean, what do you think of what he could bring, or excuse me, what his future could look like?
All right, Said. So, I have a really, really good question about Kylan before we move on to Keaton.
Hmm. All
Something that
right.
we
All
did
right.
not bring up,
All
and
right.
that is, so for the people listening who do not know, Kylan Boswell, after the Big Ten tournament loss to Wisconsin, the collapse in the quarterfinal, Boswell hosted a team meeting at his
That's
apartment
right.
to
That's right.
talk to the guys and get everyone level headed, figure out what
Yeah.
was going on and why this kept on happening and how to stop it from happening. He did that, and in doing that, right out of the gates, we saw a completely different second half Illinois team in pretty much every single game after that. So the question I wanted to ask you was, had Kylan not hosted that meeting, what do you think the outlook of the season would look like?
Dude, this is one of the things that I keep going back to. I tried to dig into that, right? It sounded like a lot of the guys did not want to talk about, like Zavonimir strictly told me. I asked him about the meeting, I asked him what the dialogue was, and he said, I don't want to, I want to keep that between us or whatever. And I respect that, obviously. I do think, and it sounded like Boswell also did not want to comment on that when I asked him about it during the media availability for Final Four. But I do think that was somewhat of a turning point in this kind of postseason Illinois version that you saw, right? Because you did see a team that could get complacent offensively or defensively in Chicago at the Big Ten tournament, and then you suddenly saw a big switch. Stojakovic said that it wasn't really, there wasn't nothing that really flipped, like no flip of the switch. It was just kind of a realization of what they had done, that they can be that team. But that kind of stuff is really important, and that's why you look for a Kylan Boswell to be that kind of leader. That's why you would hope that someone was going to do that. And in this year, it just so happened to be Kylan Boswell, a guy who's been here for 2 years, who knows that how much it would mean to get to a stage like a Final Four, and who knows what is like to lose in the tournament. So I think that you saw a totally different team, and I don't know if it's everything, right? That meeting was everything, but it definitely had to do with why Illinois became so successful in the tournament.
It allowed them to find that resilience, to find that motivation to jump out of the gates in the first round of the NCAA tournament against Penn, and then the same thing against VCU. And I think from there the momentum kind of carried along. They just needed to get the engine started once again, and they did that, and they turned into the team that they looked like when they had gone on their 12-game win streak earlier in the season.
No, I agree, and I just, to me, the guy who will hopefully be, and we can unpack that in a bit, the guy who will hopefully be that guy next season, if that ever situation ever comes to fruition again, would be David, because it sounded like David was the secondary voice in bringing that meeting up and having that be a thing where you guys get together and you talk ball, or just talk about what the finality of the season could look like, and realize that you are that team. You are that team to be able to get to these heights. So it's that kind of thing. But yeah, so go ahead.
I was just gonna say, that just shows how much the personality test actually does matter, because if you're recruiting only guys with this certain winning family togetherness mentality, then when you have a guy like Kylan Boswell and Keaton Wagler leave in the same year, you have players on the bench and still in the starting lineup that can come in and fill that hole and be that leading voice. But with that being said, the departure of Keaton Wagler, I think he's projected,
which we don't know if he's departing yet, but
yes, right.
I mean, we think, yeah.
I think if he goes to the draft, I'm pretty sure he's projected 6th or 7th in this year's draft. And really all I want to say is he kind of gives me, since the Purdue game, he kind of gives me shades of Tyrese Halliburton, a player who is so impactful to the team every night, game in, game out. I mean, Tyrese, after he tore his Achilles, the Pacers went from, a finals contender to one of the worst teams in the league. And with both of them, I think they're guys who, at first, when you watch them play, you don't think they're the superstar that they are. I mean, obviously, you probably think they're still an amazing player, but to impact their teams as much as they do individually, it's just something that you need to have both physically and mentally. And I think Keaton is lucky to be such a young basketball player with all that poise, and he's almost stoic. He takes it in. He does what the defense gives him, and I think those are traits that are going to help him build on his game once he reaches the National Basketball League. And people forget he's 6'6". Give him a couple years in the gym, and he could turn into a freak.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think a lot of the resounding sentiments of what you said, I will probably echo. But the part to me that stood out the most about him, and this is a theme that Underwood highlighted over the course of the season a lot, but early on, definitely in like December, where it was pretty early still. But he really always makes quote unquote he makes the right basketball decision. And you did say, if anything, I thought one of his biggest weaknesses was the fact that he was maybe too unselfish all the time. And that was one of the things that I thought about whether or not, this kid was NBA ready. I do think he's NBA ready. He's 100% that. He is that prospect. And it's, to me, it's crazy to think back all the way back in October when we first got to meet this team during local media day, and hearing all the messaging about Keaton Wagler and about him being really, really good. And I remember thinking to myself how ridiculous that sounded. To think that a freshman can come in and be that guy.
A 3-star.
It was really a 3-star, in some places a 4-star, but a 3-star, to be that guy. And he was every bit of it. And it is incredible to have that. And and this is something for next time, right? For the next podcast. But, the return on investment that you got from this particular guy is insane. And it's so much of the reason for why Illinois was able to get to this stage that they got. And it's just incredible. I think that Keaton Wagler should go to the NBA. He will probably. There's no, like, it's worth talking about, but at the same time, it's not worth talking about it because there's no reason he should come back. You would, sorry, but he would have to be like I don't know, come on, he has to go to the NBA. That's it. That's end of story, right? Like, it's not worth talking about it more, but it is.
The only reason I could see him not coming back would be a world where he values one more year with his best friends and, the best coach he's ever had, probably. But at the same time, like you said, it's just too much of a risk.
Yeah.
His stock right now, I mean, he's clearly ready for the NBA. Why go back and risk your stock? I mean, imagine he comes back to Illinois and doesn't have as good of a freshman year.
Let me ask you a question, Elliot. Elliot, would you rather spend a year with your buddies playing basketball, or would you rather $8 million?
Yeah, but what if he's gonna make that $8 million, the year after,
Yeah, but you get the point, though, right?
Right. I mean, nobody's going to turn that down.
I'm not going to turn down $8 million just to play basketball with my friends. And at that stage, obviously, I'm being hyperbolic here, but yeah, the risk is significant. You do mention that. I think that's the biggest thing, is that the risk is significant, and that you'd be putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and you could also be putting yourself ahead of everybody else if you jump into the NBA pool and your development just continues to grow. I'm sure right now KJ is going through some development, humps, but that stuff's going to pay off over the next couple of years because he got to the NBA as soon as he did. And that's kind of how it works here. And it's unfortunate, right? Because that's just kind of the way of the land now, but it is ultimately how that is, right?
Yeah. And you look at the month Will Riley's been having in his rookie season. I mean, that's just confirmation to Keaton that, okay, I just need maybe half a year in the NBA and I'll be fully developed. I'll be fully adapted and I'll be ready to be me again.
Yeah, maybe not fully developed, but I do think that it would be. I think Keaton Wagler could be one of those guys to be really. I guess maybe not fully developed, but like I said, he could be making some huge strides at this point next year, right?
Yeah,
and not only that, but I do think they feel kind of similar, and not in terms of maybe the play style, but figure wise, they are similar height, similar kind of type of player maybe. And I feel like that is kind of the future of in the NBA is that skinny, tall player, guard, and that's we've seen exactly point
There's
forwards.
No room in the NBA for short people anymore.
Exactly.
The 6 foot point guard has turned into the 6'8" point guard. I mean, exactly. You see Merck bringing up the ball, and that's college.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And so that to me speaks volumes as to, the future that Keaton Wagler could have in the NBA as a point forward, as a guard, as a player to develop in the future. And, it's worth discussing, but at the same time, is it worth discussing? We'll see. I do think there's a 1% chance he comes back, but really not much worth more words. I want to do a little quick, little flip of the gear or whatever, if I may. Uh, just reflecting more on the season that this was, Elliot. What was your favorite moment? I have a feeling we're gonna have like my favorite, similar favorite moment slash favorite game that we covered slash watched. But let's start with you, Elliot Casey. What, Mr. Elliot Casey? What was your favorite moment of the season?
Okay, so read my mind here, and I'm going to read yours, and neither of
All
us
right.
are going to say what first came to our mind because
Okay.
it's too basic, and
It is too basic.
and obviously, who wouldn't pick that? You know, I,
Yeah.
I'm going to just give a little sneak peek into what I felt that night, and what you probably felt. I mean, it was a feeling of, how is this happening? Like, are you
Yeah.
serious? Did he just do this again? Like, oh my god, like there's no way. Like we I really thought we were gonna lose. And this guy, just this little point guard, just came out of nowhere and dropped 46 points, and I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
think almost double digit threes in one of the hardest venues to play at in
Insane.
college basketball.
Insane.
Um,
Insane. Yeah.
but my other favorite moment, I I'm gonna say this because I feel like it gets overlooked because of the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
But man, those two Jake Davis free throws against Michigan State to send it to overtime,
Amazing.
probably
Yeah.
some of the clutchest work
Yeah.
I have seen all season. I mean,
Yeah.
like he was holding all of Champaign on his back, everybody staring at the TV,
Yeah.
knowing that he is just as scared as we are, and he executed. And man, if we would have gotten a win on that game, those free throws would have been remembered more than they are today.
Yeah, well, hey, I tell you what, if they would have won that game or maybe one of those couple games that they blew towards the end of the season, they wouldn't have gotten the draw that they had, right? They did, so maybe things worked out the way that they
Yeah,
needed to.
maybe we're
That's
thankful. Yeah.
exactly. Maybe Illinois fans should be thankful. You should be thankful. No, you're right, man. Like we were both there with Jack from TCR. That night was euphoric. I mean, to be in that moment, to watch this kid go off, um, to watch this venue shrink in the way that it did. He Keaton Wagler held that venue in his palm and said, "This is this is the power of the sun in the palm of my hands." That's a Spider-Man reference, if anyone if anyone knows it. But anyways, like he just took control of that entire game, and he made it his moment. And kudos to everybody else for also letting him cook, as well, because that was certainly something that people thought about as well. But experiencing that venue was insane, right? Like Purdue Mackey Arena is crazy. Like
It was
it's
loud.
crazy.
It
It's
was loud.
crazy. And that was my first time like experiencing that, but that place was insane. Like I could not believe what that was. Like, and I can't imagine being a player, but then also like the fact that Illinois won in the way that they did. Insane to just have that 46 points. That is my favorite memory of the season. I will hold that near and dear within my heart, as I will probably cover preps over the next couple of years. I don't know, but no, I as a secondary memory, I mean, I will say I think that people forget about that early win against Texas Tech, where this team was was pretty early in the season, but Stojakovic,
That
showing
dunk.
glimpses of what he
Yeah.
could be, and that dunk was insane. And he had a couple of those over the course of the season. He had one in Chicago too. I will say those dunks and those moments kind of resound in my mind. Zvonimir in the NCAA tournament, to have what he did, defending the rim, and then
In that VCU game, oh
that
my.
VCU game, insane. Those will be the memories that I will remember about when it comes to this team, and that moves me to the next thing. My favorite player over the course of this season to cover, and not only to cover, but also if we take our reporter hats off for a little bit as a fan. For me, that's pretty easy. I suspect we won't be on the same page, but it'd be I'm interested to see if we are. To me, he's become a fan favorite. But David Merkovich is a guy I will buy his jersey when I am out of here. I will buy his jersey. And as good as Keaton Wagler was this season, and as good of a kid as he is too, David Merkovich is just a special human being. Um, Maybe it's something about the accent. It's something about the way he speaks, his sense of humor, his playing style, and the funky little jog or the funky little way he runs. He's awesome, and I
So
will,
much to like.
and his appreciation towards the fans is also, he can put himself in your shoes as well as a fan, and I appreciate that. And like I said, when I'm out of here, when I'm out of this University of Illinois, and I become a lowly fan once I sorry, not lowly fan. I'm just when I'll be a fan once again. I'm gonna buy that jersey, man.
Yeah, I mean, you have every right to believe that, and I sit right there with you. Merck is just one of the most treasured players in all of college basketball. You
Yeah,
mentioned it. I mean, he's unfiltered. He speaks his
yeah,
mind to the media, like genuinely. Like I think that's one of the most important reasons why he's been getting this much attention is because he lets the world see his real self.
yeah,
And inside that real self is, you got a quarter of him is just goofy, and then a quarter of him is determined and confident, and then a quarter of him is insecure and wants to get better, and then another quarter of him is just happy to be part of this family. There's just so many things to like, so many qualities that kind of he has that you would want in any player on any sports team, frankly. um, and yeah, I mean, he sits right there with Z as one of my favorite players.
mm,
I just wanted to say Z is probably one of my favorite guys to watch this season, specifically because every time he comes on the court, you're gonna get something. You're gonna get an electric moment. You're gonna get he's a momentum shifting player. Every block, every dunk. I mean, I feel like it makes more of an impact than people think. The amount of momentum that he carries himself for this team, with his rim protection ability and his dunking ability.
yeah,
And on top of that, I mean, he possesses some of the similarities of Merkovich. Being unfiltered with the media, being
yeah, yeah,
himself, and at the same time, though, having that inner passion to want to rub off on his teammates and make them better,
yeah.
and help this team win.
I sense the same thing from Big Z. Um, Very raw and real in the way that he answers stuff and what he communicates, right? Like is open to having those fun conversations. Maybe not as open to having some real basketball conversations, but definitely on that lighter side as well. One last thing on Mirkovic, the to me one of the things that also stands out about him that I will always remember too is that text message that he sent to Brad Underwood after a tough loss. I can't quite pinpoint what loss it was, where he did not play well at all, and he sent Underwood this long ass paragraph of a message, and Underwood shared that with us. And I think that's another point for like Mirkovic. Not that it's a competition, but another reason to point to is for why this is a guy who could potentially be back and that cares after that narrative being of that this Balkans or European players don't really care. Man, he cares so much, and to me, that's a beautiful thing to have seen grow and to see him kind of live that in his first season in Champaign. It's pretty remarkable stuff. But speaking of staying or going, that locker room vibe check we have to do first. Excuse me, not be staying or going. We have to do a locker room vibe check, which is, obviously we saw the players be all, soak in there in the misery of that loss. But I guess what did you make of the conversations that we did have with a couple of those players? Did you sense anything? Um, Kind of resounding besides the fact that a lot of these players were just sad because they weren't ever going to play with each other again.
Yeah, obviously that was feeling, and that was you could sense that feeling in the
Yeah,
locker room immediately. But I think the one thing that specifically I asked about to kind of fill a couple of guys with optimism, Z and Merck both. Z, after he said a lot of the guys not going to be here next year, I said, yeah, but you're not done. And he goes, I'm not done. So, you got those three words out of Z. But I mean, him and Tommy both should want to come back and get everything they can get out of this program with Underwood. I mean,
Yeah.
Z didn't even play that many minutes this year.
Yeah.
I think if he stays another year and cements his role in this Underwood squad, he could really develop into an even more dangerous 7'2" beast.
Yeah.
And then with Merck, a reporter asked him if he could be the leader of the team if he comes back next year, and he didn't hesitate. He just said yeah, and then that was it. And then he kind of went in depth as to how the student visa and the trouble with getting him registered impacted his time in the summer last summer. And he brought up a good point that he's going to work his a-hole off this summer to get to that even more dangerous version of himself that he can be, and Illinois fans all know he can be. But yeah, like you said, I mean, when you're talking to a group of guys, all teary-eyed, all red-eyed,
it's hard,
dude. You gotta level with them. You gotta level with them. You gotta get to their level, and you gotta try to put yourself in their shoes and understand how they're feeling. And that's kind of why I was glad to get some encouraging responses from Merck and Z as to their optimism for next season.
Yeah, I just sensed the level of care from a lot of the guys, especially the guys who were crying and definitely were able to filter out, the guys that oh man, this really hit them, and the other guys who maybe didn't get all that many minutes who weren't that way. But obviously everybody has its winners and losers in locker rooms when it comes to getting minutes and all of that. So that's neither here nor there. But you touched on it a little bit, the idea of staying or going, and there's going to be a lot of guys who have that decision upcoming. But let's see who I guess I personally think that obviously Mirkovic is I sense that he would come back. I think that he's endeared himself with fans, the fan base.
Unlike Wagler, Merck knows he has more to give. I mean, he was just getting to that point where he was kind of turning into a different level of a player. And I think he knows that if he comes back and has even more of a role on this team, he could do levels and become a first rounder next year. I don't think it would make sense for him to go to the draft with his stock as of right now, number one, when it could be so much better next year, number two, but also the fact that, like I was saying earlier, he can get another year in this program, in this culture, and one that, he hasn't spent much time in yet, but already feels so bought into.
Yeah, no question about it. And it'll just be about the paycheck that it will end up getting. But I wouldn't say blank check, but I would be willing to give up a lot to see if we can get if Illinois could get him back. Another guy that's really intriguing is Stojakovic, as a guy who came off the bench this year, mostly, but had an impact in the tournament. I think every bit of that investment that you invested in him this past season paid off solely because of that run in March. You obviously would want him to have that impact throughout the course of this year consistently, but that's one of the guys where, I would think he would want to go back because of the success in March and what he ultimately meant to the fan base this season.
Yeah, I think there maybe is a world where if he didn't have that success in March, maybe he would transfer. Maybe he wasn't happy with his
decision would be
new
pretty
role.
easy, right?
Maybe he wouldn't be happy with his new role. But that glimpse of March kind of just reminded him what he can be at this program. Obviously the only worry is to two things. Number one, I'm pretty sure he was working in the gym with an NBA trainer the other day. So, you never really know what somebody's thinking. And then also he's, the only member of the Balkan bloc that's not represented by Nikola Jokic's agent, Miško Rajnatović.
Yeah.
And Miško Rajnatović representing Petrovic, both of the Ivicics and Mirkovic. Obviously you don't know what the future holds for Petrovic, but
Yeah.
as for the other three, I think those guys are pretty much set in stone for coming back next year. And I think Stojakovic is a hopeful, but more of a you still don't know. And Jake Davis, being so close with the Balkan guys, with the international guys, the honorary Balkan. If they're back, there would be no reason for Jake not to come back, given the role he played last year, starter minutes, and in a culture that he thrives in and feels at home at.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think another factor in the Stojakovic calculus is I do think his dad plays a big role in the influence, right, of what he will do
Right.
basketball wise. So, and he's a pretty private guy, and I don't think he really, doesn't even wear the colors of Illinois on the side, which not to say that, he would be more willing to have his son leave, but these kind of basketball things are
Just
something that,
something to keep
some
an eye
people are more
on.
exactly, but it definitely I don't I think that it's pretty up in the air with Stojakovic, but at least personally feel pretty good about his chances of returning. It'd just be a matter of the money, right? I think 'cause that's
Right.
something, but to have that success is, I mean, that big four success is just crazy. To really say, hey, I don't want to. It'd be hard to turn that down, I would imagine. But a guy we haven't talked about is Tommy, who I can't imagine being anywhere else, but you just never know, right? Like, you would imagine that both brothers would want to stick together, but Z being a guy who, was able to sacrifice some stuff for the betterment of the brotherhood and the brothers that they were. I don't know, man. I feel like I could see him returning, but you just really don't know. And also money wise, it's really difficult to see that kind of all fit in the same budget.
Yeah, I think one thing about those two returning is it really would be best if both of them are starters on the squad, because both of them have too much talent to be coming off the bench for a Big Ten team like this. I mean, I I think of next year's roster possibilities, and if you get John Blackwell, or even if you don't, either at the point you either got John Blackwell or Quentin Coleman, and then either you can put Quentin at the shooting guard, or you could put Andre at the shooting guard, and then Merck at the small forward, and then Z and Tommy at the 4 and the 5 interchangeably. It wasn't something that Underwood tried a lot this year, and it's something that maybe as an Illini fan I would like to see him experiment with more, just to see what that can do for the team when Tommy is shooting well and Z is just being a menace in the paint. But it's hard because both of their second halves of the season were poor from 3-point range, and the original reason why Underwood grabbed these guys was because their positional size and their ability to shoot the ball. So yeah, you never know, but I really couldn't see Tommy leaving. I think both of them are going to stay. I mean, you really just don't see them
Yeah.
splitting up after crossing paths.
And that's not reporting, it's just our speculation, right? Ty Rogers is a guy that I think this will be the last guy that we really talk about. Ty Rogers is a guy that I can't imagine, just because 2 seasons. Last season he redshirted, this season surprise return, and then got injured, and just it's unfortunate the situation, but you would also have to imagine the calculus is more about what kind of basketball player you're getting at this point again. And so that's what makes it tough. And I don't know. I feel like this is one of those really toss up guys, but could also be a really big glue guy.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't know what you're gonna get because on that Elite Eight team, he was such a major factor. But having not played in a real game for so long, I mean,
Yeah.
how much of that really has impacted his game. And I with Ty, what I think is either he will redshirt if he thinks his game is back to where it should be. Sure, he could get another medical redshirt and play a pretty big role on this team. But if he isn't as confident in his ability at that point in time, I could see a world where he just turns into an assistant coach or a
Yeah.
manager of some sort.
Yeah, I mean that is fun speculation. I do think he's a guy who Underwood says that will eventually go into coaching, probably as one of those being a guy who played a big part in when it comes to the glue guy and basically another coach on this staff. But I think either way, Illinois is in good hands, and that Final Four push will really push Illinois to not only be on the national brand, like be a national like team to watch all year, but also just that they're really good year in and year out, and there's no reason to believe Illinois cannot continue that going forward. So Illinois is in a good place, Elliot.
I completely agree, and I know the future holds a lot for Underwood. Given what he's already done in his years at Illinois, and with the retention that looks like it's coming back, we could be in for another historical season here.
Well, we'll see about that. Hopefully, you are right for the sake of everybody listening, and just for the sake of Illinois, because it could really be it is a really good time to be around this program and to be a fan. And so, yeah, though. Thank you everyone for listening, for tuning into this episode of the pod. As always, I really, really appreciate it. Subscribe, rate, review, if you so please. Elliot Casey, thank you so much for joining me. It was sure a lot of fun, and I'm sure I'll have you on before the end of whatever this venture is. I don't know if this podcast will continue or end, but yeah, subscribe and review if you so please. If you so please, yeah. All right, peace.
See you guys. Thanks for having me, Syed.